Welcome to the Black Tower Podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Thorne, and today we're going to talk about Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. It may be kind of odd that I'm here again. Andrew had to deal with some personal things. We don't know any details. But for now, myself and Greg, who's previously been on the show before, are going to be taking over for now.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody really remembers me because I don't see the metrics from any of these episodes. But part 2 of the Eye of the World review, I did drop in and offer some thoughts. So it's good to be back. A little reintroduction. I'm not known for anything, but you may know my Twitter account as Randall Thor, the Dragon Reborn. Recently passed 400 followers. If you are following me already and listening to this, I very much appreciate it. If you aren't following that account yet and you're listening to this, what are you waiting for? About it.
Oh my God, I remember whenever you had less followers than I did. You've surpassed me.
Well, and then even the Demondred account made a whole big deal about that. And then that account and my account kind of went back and forth, and he called me a child, and we just kind of went round and round. And usually you can see me out there sparring with Moradin, who is actually in the Black Tower Discord, and he's in my other Discord for my other podcast. And so Moradin and we tend to go back and forth on there as well. But yep, that's me. I'm the man behind the Rand, so to speak. That Rand, anyway, there's like 8 or some ungodly number.
There are a lot of Rands because I was trying. Yeah. Oh, no, I probably shouldn't talk about that. We may need to edit this part out.
Well, I'll let Aaron make that call, but I will say this. When I did the whole Rand account, I thought it was just going to, it might hit like 70 followers and then just kind of peter out, and nobody really, because everyone else is like, oh, there's already all these other Rands that have been going on for such a long time. But I got to talking to one of the other accounts, and people started telling me, hey, you may be the new guy for all these different Rands, but your Rand is actually kind of accurate, like kind of really accurate. Like, it's kind of scary how accurate you're playing Rand here. And I'm just like, well, I am in the middle of the books right now, so some of this is just regurgitating what I'm reading, but thank you. I appreciate that. So, but yes, to kind of come back behind what Thorne is saying, several weeks ago, Aaron had to depart the podcast, and then Andrew has had some personal issues and some things come up. We don't know the details, so don't ask. And they have asked Thorne and myself to come in and pick up the podcast for the time being. As far as, who the new hosts will actually be and the overall actual future of the podcast, that is to be determined. But for now, you've got me and Thorne. So I'm hoping you guys enjoy what we had to say. And as we fill in for Andrew and Aaron and continue their vision for the Black Tower. Now, today, we are going to actually talk about the Seanchan. We're going to start talking about the different cultures and lands from the kind of the outlying areas from, I guess we could say, Randland, because, we never got a name for that continent. So, places like Seanchan and Shara and places like that, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to focus on the Seanchan tonight. So spoiler warning, if you have not read pretty much the whole series, because we have a lot to cover with the Seanchan. So if you have not read pretty much the entire series, then spoiler alert, spoiler warning, we may ruin something for you here, because the Seanchan show up very early in the series and they stay a pretty major part of the series throughout. So we will interact with a lot of material from a lot of different parts of the book series. So Thorne, how in the world were we pronouncing Seanchan right? Is it Seanchan, or is it weird? Is it like it's supposed to be Seanchan? I mean, how do you think we're supposed to pronounce it?
I think it's Seanchan, like the name Sean, because that's how the Wikipedia has the pronunciation. I don't know what it says in like the companion or the actual books, because I do not own a lot of the physical copies.
Yeah, I have. I'm just going to be honest. All of the pronunciations I have, because I find myself comparing the way I pronounce things, against other people. I read and to listen to the books pretty much at the same time. I would listen to them at work and then read them when I came home. So I listened, of course, to Kate Redding and Michael Kramer, and the way they pronounce things is the way I ultimately pronounce things. So they always said Seanchan, I say Seanchan. I've never heard anyone else say anything other than that. But I guess kind of transition to know exactly what Seanchan is. So it's an empire located on another continent that's across the sea. We're going to get to that in a second. And it's actually Seanchan Empire is named for the continent that it's on, which is Seanchan. For as best we can tell from the books and all the materials, it was founded after the Trolloc Wars. And in the books, it began assaulting the various cities in, for lack of a better term, Randland, in order to initiate something called the Return. So it was basically an invasion of the main lands in the books. And then this is where spoilers start to come in. The assault itself, which continued throughout the series, kind of stopped when the Empress of Seanchan made an arrangement to aid the Dragon Reborn in the last battle.
I don't have much to say about that.
And we're just kind of doing an overview here. So, so what can you tell me? So, I guess Thorne, really, we just need to kind of just talk about the significance behind, who the Seanchan are themselves. Because everyone knows about the Trolloc Wars, or at least if you're listening, I hope you know about the Trolloc Wars. It's mentioned from the first book, but Trolloc Wars was probably the next most significant event as far as sequentially after the breaking, from as far as I can tell. So after the Trolloc Wars, basically what happened was this guy named Arthur Hartwing rose up, and he started, I believe, what ended up becoming known as the the 100 Years' War. I'm trying to remember. I'm having having a really bad memory tonight.
I can't remember exactly. They it was after the Trolloc Wars, and after Arthur
henceforth known as Hawkwing. We're just that's what we're going to call him, because we want to say Arthur, because obviously this guy was named after Arthur, King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, because his full name was like Arthur Paindrag.
Paindrag.
And so that's obvious. I mean, there's a lot of places where Robert Jordan references or secretly references the Knights of the Round Table and Camelot and all of that. And this is the most obvious one with Arthur Hawkwing, and he just kind of took really one letter out of the word and made his name. I mean, I love you, Robert Jordan. You're an extremely creative man, but you weren't hiding your influences there.
He really liked to sneak in like Easter eggs, I guess. Because somebody was telling me the other day about references that Tom Maryland makes to different things in Just the Eye of the World, and I never caught them, but then they mentioned it, and they were like, this is exactly what it means and what it's about. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I've read it twice. How did I not catch that?
And the funny thing for me was, especially with all of that, all these Easter eggs, if you will, is I have a friend, only up until Twitter of Time, I had one friend who liked Wheel of Time, and he was the one that got me into the books. And then I started reading the books, and then Twitter of Time exploded. So I jumped on board, of course, and that's how I kind of became a temporary host on a podcast. But the thing that was happening, though, was I'd be reading these books, listening to these books, and something would stick out to me, and I'd message him immediately and say, so wait, when Jordan wrote this, was he talking about this, and was he referencing this? And my friend would be like, yeah, he was, or no, but it's I can see why you thought that. And so he was aware of a lot of these things. But as far as who the Seanchan are, they are the descendants of Hawkwing.
It was the person who actually went over to Seanchan was Luther Pendrag Mondwyn, and he went across the Earth Ocean, and they never returned from where they came. They were assumed to be lost. Nobody knew that there were other continents across the ocean, so everybody was like, well, I guess their ship got lost and they're probably all dead. But they actually made it across the ocean and arrived in Seanchan.
We thought you were dead. You didn't die. You did the opposite of die. You did very much the opposite of die. And by the way, in case we didn't make it clear, Luther Pendrag Mondwyn was Hawkwing's son. So he sent his son over there with all these people, and they started doing all these things. But yes.
Yeah, they started pitting the native nations against each other, and then causing the subjugation and unification of the continent into the Seanchan Empire, and it was called the Consolidation.
For such a civilization as that's kind of such a technical word. I mean, they don't call it the invasion, they don't call it the unification, or like something mystical like the reckoning. It's just like, oh, we consolidated everything. I'm like, what a business-like thing for you to say. Just like
yeah, well, apparently the consolidation took nearly 800 years to achieve.
I didn't know that.
So 800 years to put the Seanchan Empire together. And I'm sorry, but I'm reading under the history.
That's fine. For those of you who haven't already picked up on it, we kind of have some notes here in front of us to make sure we get some of our facts straight. We didn't have a whole bunch of time to prep, but luckily the guys had actually done some stuff for us. So thanks, guys. We're happy to do this part if you keep doing your part. But so yeah, well, it says kind of looking at the history and the notes we have here, it says the consolidation is revealed to have taken nearly 800 years. So I didn't know that before we started recording. I knew a lot of this other stuff. I actually didn't know that. And then there is a Seanchan General Mirage, or however you say his name. It looks like Mirage, Mira.
Mirage would be how I would pronounce
it.
I
mean, that's such an awesome name. It's like, I'm General Mirage. It's like, that Mirage, is dope. Maybe? Like, it's Mirage. I'm saying Mirage, and then don't at me. So it says he missed the consolidation by about 200 years, and he's had to stop numerous rebellions since then. But the heirs of Luther are the ones who are carrying the royal line. They are the ones that rule the empire.
And part of what probably helped them a lot to be successful in Seanchan is because there are many, many, many strange animals in Seanchan.
Oh, they're so weird. They're so weird. Rockin' are so
just
weird.
To name a few, we have got. Sorry, I'm checking the notes because I know they're here.
Well, we have a Rockin', which are probably the ones we see the most in the books. I'm trying to scroll. The ones that they ride on, they fly around on.
Yeah, they have a body considerably longer than a horse and about equal in girth, with leathery gray skin and large, powerful wings like those of a bat. They're often, in the books, people think that they're shadow spawn because they're just terrifying to look at. I kind of imagine them as like I'm going to butcher this, Werven.
You mean like a wyvern?
Yes, a wyvern. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I got what you were saying. But then I think of that, but I also think of, if you remember Lord of the Rings, the fell beasts that the Witch King and the other ring race, the Nazgul, rode on. But these things seem like they're a little smaller than that. They don't have as long a neck.
I've never seen The Lord of the Rings. Don't at me.
Okay, no one else can at her. I'm going to at her on the podcast, as in, what? Hand me your fantasy fan card right now. I'm just kidding. Wheel of Time is better.
I could never get into the books. I could never get into the movies. They start too slow for me.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because now that you've read and reread The Wheel of Time, maybe you can give it another shot, because I feel like they start an awful lot alike. Again, more Robert Jordan references.
I'll think about it, maybe. Probably not.
But okay, go ahead.
But back to animals.
Talking about animals, they subdued a whole bunch of weird animals, and the Rockin' are just one type of animal. I think we can probably go over that a little bit more in detail a little bit later. But that was one of the things they did. And then according to their history, after they kind of subdued these animals from the continent, they killed all the shadow spawn on the continent, which means there were shadow spawn there. There were Trollocs and possibly Murdral. Usually if there's Trollocs, there's Murdral, maybe even Drakkar. There were shadow spawn on the on Seanchan. But Shale Ghoul is not in Seanchan, so there was no repopulating the shadow spawn. So when they killed them out, they completely wiped them out, and they had been gone long enough that the Seanchan people actually treated shadow spawn like they were a myth. And I don't know, again, this is spoilers for parts of the series, all over the series, but I don't know if you remember, Thorne, when Tuon was talking to Matt, and Matt was saying something about Trollocs and all these other things. She kept laughing at him because she's like, "You're telling children's tales."
Yeah, she thought it was hilarious.
She's like, "These are such fancies." And then she saw them. She was like, "Oh my God, you were not lying to me. You were telling me that these things exist."
Except she pretends like she totally believed in them the whole time.
So I was just testing you. I was just testing you. I was just testing you, my pet. I was just testing you. It's, just to see if you would tolerate that. I'm just like, 2-1, you're not fooling nobody.
But more recently is whenever the return came. The return is the Seanchan coming back across the ocean to reclaim the lands that they thought were theirs, or that were theirs by right, but they've been gone so long that nobody even remembers that Luther went across the ocean.
Well, it was expectation when they came back too. I mean, when they landed in Falma, they talked about how, oh, these people didn't remember who we are, and they were aghast. They were like, how did they not know we were coming? Like, they should be waiting for us, waiting to subjugate themselves before us, because we're here to, reclaim the lands of Hawkwing, and nobody even recognized us. And so they had this idea in their head that when they came back, everyone was going to be like, yes, our saviors, from Great Hawkwing's army come again to unite the land and throw down the false rulers and all this other stuff. But really, everyone was just like, why are there a bunch of dudes running around in bug helmets? That was essentially what it was.
But yeah, they had also planned for this for at least 20 years before they could even build the ships or marshal troops.
And that is extraordinary to me, because if you're running a country, you've got to have, well, depending on your political views, of course, but in this type of setting, you pretty much have to have a standing army of some sort. And so the fact that they were building their military, building their troops, building everything they needed just so they could sail across the ocean and invade their old homeland, it's a wonder they were able to kind of keep any kind of rebellions down. Which is why I think as soon as they sent the mass of their force over to Randland, if you hate that name, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to call it. Once they started the return, that's why just a few books before the end, they started getting reports that Seanchan fell, that the Empress died. That's how Tuon became Fortuna and all of that. And
yes, she picked her name. The Seanchan have weird naming customs where they can earn, you can either earn a new name, or it can also be a punishment for somebody who earned it, like Tuon, whenever she ascended from the Daughter of the Nine Moons, which was like the heir to the Seanchan Empire, to becoming Empress. She got to choose her own new name, and she chose to become Fortuana.
And and I think we're going to get a little bit more into that too here a little further down the line. But there's a lot of really weird customs, and the contrast between even the various customs on the main continent, between the different nations and even the Aiel and all of that, they're normal, at least normal by comparison when compared to the Seanchan. Because the Seanchan show up, it said all throughout the books that their armor, their helmets, their armors are like these really vibrant colors. They're not like steel gray or black or anything like that. I mean, depending on your rank and what you're part of, it's different armor, different color armor. Their helmets look like bugs. They look like insect heads with these face plates that go over.
And also the way that their hair is cut belies rank too. Like, it seems like the less hair you have, then the higher ranking Seanchan you are.
That's basically what I got from it, especially because I believe Tuon, even before she became Fortuona, she had like little to no hair on her at all. Like, she had a shaved head, right? Whereas the generals, they'll have a little bit of hair on top of their head that's a little bit longer, and then the sides of their head will be shaved. And then also there's the whole painting of the nails.
Yes, the more fingernails. If you have no fingernails painted, you're usually common. The more fingernails you have painted, the higher rank you are. Only the imperial family has all of their nails painted.
So when the Seanchan first showed up in the main setting of the books, they showed up and they seized the town of Falma. That's how I pronounce it. Some people say Falm, but again, thank you, Kramer and Redding, for the pronunciations. But they seized Falma and the surrounding lands, so they took parts of Terrebonne right off the bat.
Oh, they were driven back.
They landed at Falma, and then if you've read The Great Hunt, you know how that turned out. Rand and friends, the Taviran Corps group, showed up and did the thing, which we're going to talk about that a little more later by the way of talking about Damane. But the Falma got taken from them. There was a setback, but then basically the Seanchan kind of rallied. They came back and they took Terrebonne, and then they moved into Amadicia, which was a pretty big feat considering that Amadicia is home to the White Cloaks. And then they just kind of kept pushing through. They took Ebu Dar and most of Altara. And then
when they took Ebu Dar was whenever Tuon finally came into the story as well. That's whenever she finally came across I believe her part of, because it was the return. Oh, it was the Forerunners, and then it was the
Forerunners
return,
were kind of the Vanguard advance force that landed, and then they prepped things, and then the actual return was centered actually around Tuon.
Yes, since she was the daughter of the Nine Moons, which basically makes her the heir to the throne. So
when they all finally showed up, about the time or right after she showed up, Rand kind of put the hurt on them. If you've read Path of Daggers, you know what I'm talking about. And he put the hurt on them a little bit and kind of slowed them down because they were getting dangerously close and getting ready to jump to Ilion. And Rand said, I'm not dealing with that, so have some Kalendor. And they kind of stopped their advance into the east, and they kind of went north instead, holding a lot of Terrebonne and then pushing into I am forgetting the name of the country. Pushing through Ameth Plain and then going up to oh my god, Rodale Teralda's from there. Eredamon, yes, Damane, yes, thank you. I had the city.
Because I always got confused about
I was just about to name the city, which was the capital city, which was Bandar Eben, but then I was like, but what's the country? I have to remember the country. So
I think that Teralda was managed to keep the Seanchan pretty much out of Eredamon.
Yeah, they never did. They pushed them, but they didn't. Eredamon did not fall to the Seanchan, but Eredamon also fought them pretty hard and pretty regularly on Ameth Plain. And then when Rand shows up to speak to Ituralde to get him to quit doing that and go to the north instead and go to Kandor. Oh man, those scenes. Basically, that was because Rand was pretty assured that he was going to be able to get the Seanchan to just kind of stop because he was going to go negotiate with him. So, and can I just say, sidebar, that out of the great commanders, the great captains in the story, I think Ituralde has got to be my favorite. I have to say. I think I really dig Rodel Ituralde.
We got a lot of his story from his point of view. And he was a very interesting character. I loved reading his parts.
Well, his whole...
I think I'm into battle tactics
well,
a little
if you're
bit.
not, when you start reading Wheel of Time, by the end, you kind of are.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't help that I'm probably agreeing.
but right, there was a large chunk of his story was told from his perspective, whereas with the other great captains, we get some POVs from, Gareth Bryn. We get a little bit from Davin Brashear, not a whole lot. We don't get a whole lot from we get a good bit from Pedro Nile, but we all know what happens to him. And then, of course, you have the others, and you don't just get as much as them as you get with Rodel Ituralde, especially when he is sent to Kandor.
It's the four great captains are Ituralde, Bashir, Agilmar, and
Agilmar.
Gareth
So
Bryn.
we don't get a whole lot from Agilmar. For some reason, I want to say. Right, we don't get. He's there. He's in the story. He's actually in the beginning of the story and comes back around by the end. But we don't get a lot of. I don't know if we get any point of view. I'd have to actually go through the stats and look. I don't remember getting a point of view from Agilmar.
I don't remember it at all because he's there at the beginning whenever they reach Shinar the first time, and he helps them. But I don't think that he actually. His point of view wasn't important yet.
So, in all, though, it's kind of wrapping up a little bit of this kind of the Seanchan history from back then to the series and toward the end of the series. As you may know, as the last battle kind of loomed, Rand went to the Seanchan, and he hadn't really been able to convince them, so he was going to actually annihilate them with the Choden Call.
Whenever he originally met with the Seanchan, he thought he was meeting with Tuon, the daughter of the Nine Moons, but it turned out to be somebody's going to hate me because I'm terrible at remembering names. Semirog, the most terrifying of the Chosen, in my opinion.
Hey, it sounds like you pronounced it right to me. That's how I say it. Semirog or Semirog, Semi-Ray. I don't know. Semirog, whatever.
But Semirog was pretending to be Tuon, but whenever they got there, Cadsuane's Turangriel disrupted her Mask of Mirrors, and she ended up being revealed to Rand and getting captured. So that's the first time he tried to meet with the Seanchan.
Right, and it cost him a hand. Like I said, spoilers, people. But in the end, they were able to, after he kind of, after he used Choden Call to purify Saidin.
I think by the time that Semirog showed up, he had already cleansed Saidin.
Had he done that? I am getting everything so backwards tonight, guys. Aaron, Andrew, I'm sorry, but this is probably going to be the lowest rated episode ever. They're going to get off. Everyone's going to listen to this and go, "These idiots don't know what they're talking about." But guys, there's so much to remember, and I don't have everything in front of me, and I would be using my keyboard to look things up, but it's really, really loud, so I'm not going to do that. But basically.
I'm pretty sure what happened, in this order, the Bowl of the Winds was used by Elaine and Nynaeve and the Sea Folk, and then Abu Dar was taken.
Right.
And then, I really shouldn't say that, But during the time, well, I guess we have to because it doesn't say here, Matt Cawthon kidnapped the daughter of the Nine Moons.
Well, okay, hold on. I want to put a pin in that because everyone talks about how Matt kidnaps Tuon. He did and he didn't. Because here's the deal. Okay, so in The Shadow Rising, which I think we're going to review here in the next episode or two, The Shadow Rising, he finds out, he goes through, the gateway and talks to, was it the Aelfin or the Eelfin? I get them confused.
The Eelfin or the Aelfin were first. They're the ones who answer questions. Okay. And the Eelfin were second. They're the foxes who grant wishes. I should know that since I run an Eelfin page.
You should know that. Shame on you if you don't. Anyway, essentially by consorting with these other forces, he found out that he was going to marry the daughter of the Nine Moons. And of course, for books and books, he's going, who's the bloody daughter of the Nine Moons? He even asks Tylan when he's in Ebudar. He's like, does the name daughter of the Nine Moons? Yeah, he's like, you're pretty. Are you a daughter of the Nine Moons? Because he's like, I want you to be the daughter of the Nine Moons. No, I want you to be the daughter of the Nine Moons.
I think it's more of please don't be the daughter of the Nine Moons.
Well, I think a couple of those barmaids, that he liked to hang around. I think he was like, hey, how many moons do you have? How many do you like moons? And they're like, oh, Matt, you're so silly. Go win some more money. He was real weird about it. But when he found out that Tuon was the daughter of the Nine Moons, he freaked. And he panicked and he grabbed her and was like, you're my wife. You're coming with me. And she's like.
He kidnapped her first, I thought, because he kidnapped her and then Egenin said, what are you doing? That's the daughter of the Nine Moons. And he goes, oh, shit, this is my wife.
But at the same time, I think he was actually kind of taking her because, well, I don't know, maybe he was kidnapping her. I don't know. But everyone talked about it like it was so malicious. You know what I mean?
He was taking her because he had already tied up Tylan with Tylan's help because Tylan was in on this.
Rip Tylan.
Rip Tylan. He had already tied her up in her room where he was expecting somebody to find her. Probably a maid, he was hoping. Not
so much.
Not so much. But he had tied up Tylan and he was leaving. And that's whenever Tuon confronted him. And he fought with her. And he managed to get the upper hand, which with Tuon is not an easy feat. She could probably kick a lot of people's butts, like insane fighter.
Which we need to talk about that in a second with the government. When we get into talking about how everything's set up, we need to talk about her family relationships.
Yes. But he managed to get the upper hand on her and capture her. And he decided that he had to take her with him. Or I think he was planning on tying her up and leaving her like he did Tylan.
And then her truth speaker shows up. Well, she went to truth speaker. Then her Shojin shows up and says, don't you know what's going on? That's the daughter. Okay, I remember everything now. But
I think it was Egenin who actually said that was the daughter of the Nine Moons.
Oh, it was Egenin, that's right. It was Egenin.
Because what's her name? What is her truth speaker's name? Oh my God.
I don't remember either. It's okay. But everyone who's listening knows what we're talking about. And I cannot wait for all the Twitter comments where it's like, you guys, Selucia.
Selucia. I typed her name because there's a note that I made under where it talks about Sojin in our notes. I was like,
yeah, I just found
notable Sojin. And because you can see my notes because I highlighted them.
Guys, Google Drive, use it.
But I don't think that she would have revealed Tuon. I don't think it was her. I think it was Egenin who was like, that's the daughter of the Nine Moons. And then Matt was all like, this is going to be my wife. And then that's when Tuon got interested.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was like,
unbeknownst
wait a minute, who is this man?
Well, and it just, and we'll get to that, and we'll get to why that was so interesting in just a second. But as far as kind of how everything plays out, as far as the way the government's set up, so there's The rule of Seanchan is provided by an empress or emperor who has absolute power. This person, in the books, it's an empress. They reign from the crystal throne at the court of the Nine Moons. There's Tuon's namesake, located in Shandar, which is the capital of Shandar.
I would have pronounced that Seanchan, and people would have hated me. They're going to at me now.
Well, they're probably going to add us both for all kinds of stuff. You can't even remember what the Shojin's name is? He was a truth speaker, man. How dare you? Like, hey, man, there's like 1,000 characters in A Wheel of Time. I've read it once. Get off of that.
Shojin at you right now, so they're really going to at you.
Yeah, they're gonna. My phone is going to blow up tomorrow or Friday when everyone starts listening to this and going, these two people are idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. We know what we're talking about. We're nervous, okay? We're very nervous. So Shandar or Seanchan, that city, the Crystal Throne is what the Empress rules from, and that throne is actually a terre Angreal. And so when they sit on it, awe and wonder is inspired with people around them. So basically, it's you sit on the crystal throne, everyone's like, "Ooh, you're really awesome," and commands worship. But
I did not know that it was actually a terre Angreal, because it's never mentioned in the actual books.
I think it's hinted toward a lot, and I want to say maybe I'm just remembering conversations I've had with people, but I want to say maybe it was briefly mentioned, but it was like a passing mention. They're like, "Oh yeah, Crystal Throne is a terre Angreal. That's interesting." Moving on.
I don't think they ever said that it was a terre Angreal.
They may not have.
In the main 15 books. I am not including the Big White Book or the Companion.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm trying to think for the novels themselves. Yeah. But so as far as ranking goes, below the Empress and those of her immediate family, so that's the Empress and, of course, are the Empress's actual like blood relatives, her children and the like.
Which are the known as the Imperial family.
Right. So below the Empress and those of the Imperial family are the Blood, which are the noble class of the Emperor. So the Blood, if you're considered part of the Blood, we mentioned the weird custom of shaving, parts of your head and the lacquering, or we would say painting today, because it's basically painting nails. If you have at least one nail, I think it starts with the pinky finger, one nail on each hand painted and part of your head shaved, like a certain part, I think maybe right around the ears, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember what Tylen had to do. You are considered part of the Blood. So it's almost like...
Which there's different parts of the blood, too. There's the low blood and the high blood also. So if you only have one finger painted, you're probably part of the low blood.
Right.
And the low blood usually has their head shaved in a bowl shape.
Right. And if I remember correctly... Oh, yeah, there's actually a whole section down here on the blood. Maybe we should just follow the notes. We jump around a whole lot.
Are.
Just like, go over here.
We're just making comments.
But you have the Blood, that is the class, that's the noble class. It's right underneath the Imperial family, but above everyone else. Then you have this elite guard called the Death Watch Guards. And as awesome a name of that sounds, it's literally, like, it's literal in its meaning. They are watching for coming death toward the Blood and toward the Empress and her family. That's what they do. They're almost like glorified bodyguards.
I think that the Empress and the Imperial family are the only ones who command the Death Watch Guard. Mm-hmm. They report directly to the Empress, but in Ranlan, because Tuon is the daughter of the Nine Moons, they consider her the standing Empress. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, until she takes the throne for herself.
Right. And then you have the Seekers for Truth, and they are basically... It says here they hunt dark friends and act as a secret police. I don't know about the dark friend part necessarily, because they didn't really have that kind of thought toward people. It was more traitors toward the Empress.
Yes, but they consider anybody who's willing to any traitor of the Empress is a dark friend in their heads.
But I'm trying to think if they ever used that term, though. Like, did the Seanchan ever call someone a dark friend? Like, everyone from Ranland did. It's like, you're a dark friend, you're a dark friend. Oh, hi, White Cloak. Everyone's a dark friend if you're not a White Cloak. That was a word we slapped around. It's like, hey, you sneezed. Oh, you actually... are you sick? Yeah, I'm a little sick. Dark friend, that was, there was dark friend panic and Salem witch trial level hunts, at least as it comes to that.
I think that the Seekers of the Truth actually do hunt for dark friends, though, because they, remember, what is her name? I'm sorry.
There's so many names. God, there's so many names, Jordan. What did you do to me?
The first main Seanchan, she was a Seanchan leader before 2-1 got there.
Oh, oh my gosh. Suroth, Lady Suroth.
Suroth, yes. Mm-hmm. Suroth was a dark friend. Spoilers, we already told you.
Yeah, we already warned you guys. It's over now. I mean, we're what, 42 minutes into this thing, maybe without a little bit of editing. Yeah, no, you getting spoiled. Anyway.
Before Semirog even talked to Suroth, Suroth was afraid of being found out as a dark friend.
You do make a good point. I concede it. I concede that point. So you do have the Seekers for Truth that do. So they are like the Seanchan version of the White Cloaks. That is terrifying. That is so terrifying.
Except the Death Watch Guard can kill you anywhere without pretty much even a reprimand.
Oh, for sure. It's like, what?
Even if they were wrong, well, better safe than sorry.
Oh, well, absolutely. I'd love to have that kind of impunity. Not really. So the government, it has that type of structure. Now, the culture itself, I would actually venture to say, with maybe the exception of the Aiel, is the most unique culture in Wheel of Time that we have substantial information about, because Shara is super unique, but man, we didn't get a whole lot of information about them in the actual series.
I would love to talk about Shara sometimes, but that's not here nor there.
Well, I think we will at some point, either us or whoever. But I know there's some information in the White Book about Shara and maybe in the Companion. But
I totally want to be a part of that.
Well, you heard it here first, kids. But we didn't get a whole lot of in-book, like in-series information, whereas the Seanchan, everything we're talking about and blundering through, it's going to, you can actually, you encounter it as you read through the books. You encounter all of these things. But I think they have one of the most unique cultures. Now, their culture is really rigid. The class structure is very rigid. We already talked about how the highest level, other than, of course, the Imperial family, are the Blood. And a lot of people who are of the Blood can kind of either try to or trace back their lineage back to Hawkwing through his son Luther. Below them are free men and women. So there are people in Seanchan, part of the Seanchan, who are not of the Blood, who are free men and women. But they have slaves, and then there's subclasses and other types of classes within these groups. So it takes you a little while to actually, as you're reading the books, kind of come into knowledge about how this stuff works, because it's just kind of there.
The one problem that I have about them ordering this as below is that there are slaves that we'll talk about later who can actually be part of the High Blood.
Right. But at the same time, I think they're still looked at as lower, though. But it's like, you're allowed to do this because you serve one of the Blood, or you serve the Empress, or whatever.
I don't think that anybody, nobody's going to tell Selucia what to do other than 2-1.
Well, maybe it's this. Maybe it's because to be in those roles, you would have to be subjugated, which would make you part of the slave class. But then because you're in that role, because of who you're with or how you've been placed or whatever, it still grants you certain privileges. So their slavery is really weird. It's not traditional idea of slavery where it's like, you're a slave, there's the master, you always do what they tell you to do, and you can't tell anyone else what to do. You're scum of the earth, you're lowest. Like, that's how slavery is particularly pitched. throughout
And
our
when
history.
we go back to talk about whenever we talk more about the Sojin, there's actually some slaves whose job it is to tell you you're being stupid. This is what you need to do.
Which is why it's so weird. Now, when we talk about interactions of the different classes, it's really regimented. For instance, it's forbidden, and I was going to say this earlier, but I decided to kind of wait. I knew we were going to talk about it at this part. It's forbidden to look at someone of the higher class directly in the eye, which means nobody looks the Empress in the eye, or most people don't look the Empress in the eye. You even see this throughout the books. Even one of the lower blood, people who are not of the blood won't look a lower blood in the eye, but the lower blood can't look anybody else above them in the eye. So if you're of a higher rank, you are not looking. If you're a lower rank,
don't think.
Go ahead.
Whenever Fortuona becomes the Empress, I don't think that even the high blood are able to look her in the eye. That they have to talk. Everybody has to talk to the Empress through her.
Through the true speaker.
Through her voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, through the voice. I'm sorry, not the true speaker. What used to be her true speaker.
It's weird with Tuon because Selusha became both truth speaker and the voice for a time, because Tuon's previous truth speaker turned out to be Semirog.
Semirog was all over the place, y'all. All over the place.
Yeah.
All over the place.
She started out pretending to be Sojin to Tuon and being her true speaker. And then she went to becoming pretending to be Tuon. And then there was also killing the entire empire.
Yeah.
The entire imperial family.
Right.
So Semirog was all over the place, mostly in the background.
And that was kind of her thing, or one of her things. But as Thorne has already mentioned, someone of high rank, just kind of put a little more definition in with what her description here is. Someone of high rank would generally not speak to someone of significantly lower rank, and a lot of times they would just use a slave that they called their voice to relay the message. So it's really weird. It's like when you were in middle school and you were mad at your best friend, so you used a middle ground friend that both of you knew, and they would be like, hey, Greg wants you to know that he's pissed at you. Oh, okay. Well, you can go tell Greg that I'm pissed at him. Hey, Greg. And you're all right there together, and you can all hear each other, but there's one person conveying the message to two different people. That's what the vibe I get with the voice.
There's one thing I want to say, that they don't actually hear each other, because usually the voice and the high blood or Empress or Daughter of the Nine Moons, whoever they serve, they have a form of language together, which is like a sign language kind of.
Well, right. I guess that was just, I guess what I was trying to use that as more of an analogy than an actual literal, they're not actually speaking.
Yeah, well.
Because there's times where Fortuna speaks, like, to Matt in front of all these people, and I think somebody else, if I'm remembering right, and everyone's looking around like, oh my gosh, she's not using the voice. Like, what is going on here? Who is this person?
She's not even supposed to talk to Matt like that, even though he does become the Prince of the Ravens, which is the Empress's consort / husband.
Which is a good segue into the next part of our custom talk.
Yes, because I wrote down that I would like to talk about their marriage customs. So there's this really weird thing that they have.
Super weird.
Where you can marry somebody. They have problems where they're trying to marry nobles to each other, but they're far away from each other. So if the person says, I am married to, and says the person name, so whenever Matt said that the Daughter of the Nine Moons was his wife, he started a marriage ceremony without realizing it. And then Tuon was able to complete the marriage ceremony, and it has to happen in front of witnesses. You can't just do it like privately in your own rooms and be married. There has to be witnesses to it. But whenever Tuon later on says in front of everybody, Matcham Cawthon is my husband, she was finishing the wedding ceremony.
And that was actually I thought it was actually a funny moment in the book because she had divulged that to Matt.
Hilarious.
And then she does it in front of all these people. Hardly anybody else knows what's going on. And Matt is furious. He is like, you are not going to do this to me right now, Tuan. You're not going to do this to me. She's like, but you're my husband. No, don't say the words. And that's literally what was happening. It was just like, woman, don't you say those words. And like, she just is like, but you are my husband. And he's like, don't, just stop. You know, he was like, I'm not having this. And then he's like, yeah,
well, he didn't really try to stop her, but his internal dialogue.
Oh my God, it was every bit of what I just did.
Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening
not now. No. He's like, blood and ash is my luck. You know, I mean, it's like, well, your luck is good. Not when it comes to women, says all three of the Taviran of the others. Always.
Yes. But the whole reason that Tuan decided to marry Matt is because one of her damane, who happened to also be an Aes Sedai, had told her fortune and said that she would get married to, oh my God, I should have written this down or looked this up.
Well, while you're doing that, though, I want to move into a little bit more about the slavery, and then since we've already kind of talked about the blood and you're talking about the damane, we're going to use that let's use that. I want to branch off into talking about the one power and the use of damane and things like that. So while she's looking that up, the different types of slaves, you have one subclass of slave. It's powerful positions to servants of the high blood are the empress, and they're called sojin, and they are actually considered higher than free men and women. So what Thorne was saying earlier about how she said she had a problem with them saying that slaves were lower than free men, that's the reason why, because some slaves aren't actually lower than free men, and especially the sojin. And of course we have mentioned Selusha, who actually raised Tuan as her nursemaid, and then later became her chief maid and shadow, and then even later becoming Fortuna's voice and truth speaker, which was an oddity in itself. And then Tuan actually had a truth speaker before Selusha named Anath Dorje, I guess is how you say that. That was her previous truth speaker, and it was later revealed that was actually Cimarog, because the whole theme of this episode so far has been, let's play Where's Cimarog? It's like a Wheel of Time version of Where's Waldo? It's like, there's Cimarog. Nope. There's Cimarog. Yes, she burned Rand's hands off. That's definitely Cimarog.
Yes, and actually before Cimarog disguised herself as Anath Dorje, or however that
chick.
Before she disguised herself as Anath, Tuan had a truth speaker before that was killed.
Yes.
Which I wonder who possibly could have done that.
I don't know at all. I have no clue. Was it Moradin, maybe? That doesn't sound right.
It could have been, honestly.
Yeah, it probably was.
Like, he might have been like, okay, I'm going to kill this lady now. Cimarog, come over here and pretend to do something useful.
Right. But as far as a part of the slave class that are considered pretty low, if not the lowest, or some of the lowest, are the damane, which is a word meaning least ones, and they're also considered Dakavale. So a lot of them belong to the Empress herself, the Empress being the single largest holder of damane in the Empire. Due to their association with the One Power, they're considered to rank even below common house slaves and akin to animals. So damane are so low that despite being the Seanchan Empire's method of maintaining their power, like their number one weapon, people they even demonize, if you will, attraction to damane. Like someone's like, hey, I want to go ask that damane, I want to
hanky panky.
Yeah, that. I want to go hang out with them. We can flirt with them, date them, whatever, as using our terms. And they're like, oh, dude, really? How perverse are you? Like, that's sick, dude. Because
I'll just say it. Sexual attraction to demone is considered a perversion similar to bestiality.
I was working up to that, but yes, that's exactly how it's worded.
I thought you were just afraid to say sexual attraction.
Well, I was just trying to kind of piece the notes together without it sounding like I was reading it, and I just happened to skip over that word, and I was like, I probably should have said that word because it would have made things a little clearer, as to what I was trying to say. Yes. In other words, if you want to get it with a demone, you considered super perverse, like real perverse. And like she said, similar to how bestiality is regarded in the majority of cultures. But talking about the demone themselves, and I think this would be a good way to segue into that. So, the one power is a big part of the plot in the world of the Wheel of Time, and it affects all different cultures. The different cultures in the books have different viewpoints and different ways to engage with the one power or not engage with the one power, and the Seanchan are no exception. So we start by talking about the demone. So the demone are women who can channel, and they're regarded like animals. I mean, they're treated like literal dogs. Now, when I say literal dogs, I mean, I have a pet. I have a dog, adorable little dog named Eddie. He's awesome. And when I come home, I'm like, hey, buddy, and I'm talking to him like you should talk to a dog. But these people talk to demone like that. I can't talk to a human being like a literal dog, even if it's I guess favorable, I just don't,
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like they'll pet their heads.
Yeah.
Like they'll stroke their heads like they would a dog. Like they straight up demone may as well be
they
dogs.
Even call where they keep them kennels. Like they yes. call it that.
And they wear collars and have leashes.
Mm-hmm. And those are called Adom.
It is. This is the only issue that I have with the Seanchan. I find the Seanchan so fascinating, and I love them, but demone are disturbing.
Well, and that was actually, interestingly enough, the majority of the other characters' problem with the Seanchan, because they would go like Rand. He would dress in disguise and go to Abu Dar or wherever that they were ruling and walk around and expect like this just great tyranny with people being beat down on the streets and, freedoms being restricted.
No, they treat their people super well.
They did. They really did. And he was like, dude, he was like, these people are like, they're free basically. Like they're just protected.
They had food.
Yeah.
They had food. They had protection. People weren't like left out on the streets. I think that it said that they had like soup, like something similar to like a soup kitchen, like so people could eat. Mm-hmm. Like they weren't letting these people starve or anything. As long as you were like, yeah, I'll take those. They were like, yeah, okay, you can stay. You can come, you can go as you please. As long as you're willing to say that you're part of our empire.
And which the majority of people were just like, yeah, cool. Awesome. The Empress makes you live forever.
As long as it doesn't change your life. And the most that they had to do was just not look people in the
Pretty
eye.
Much.
I mean, like, honestly, if you can still farm your lands and sell them at market and the guards will keep you safe. And like the Seanchan are very harsh on
they really
crime.
Are like super harsh.
They will take you out if you're caught.
Like super dead. Super dead.
I think we went off on a tangent. I don't know.
Well, we were talking about the demone and how that was basically one of the main problems, though, is, Rand would go and say, well, hey, these cities look great and nice and people are free, but not everyone's free because the demone are not free, and that is an abomination. Basically shackling channelers and forcing them to do the bidding of their master, who is known as an Adom. I'm sorry. The Adom is the leash. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong part. It's the master's the Soldom, but the Adom is the leash and the collar that allows the control of their channeling by their trainer, the Soldom. And
yes. And some of the uses that they use for demone are mostly for fighting. They can also be used for different things. Some of them, I know that whenever Egwene was was captured as a Damani, they found out she was very powerful in Earth and that she could sense like ore, and so she would have been like a very special Damani. Like she would have been given many treats. Ugh, that grosses me out, but. She would have been rewarded a lot because she could find ore, and that's very important to the Seanchan. So,
and what was so interesting?
That, and also, sorry, I wanted to kind of segue into foretelling because I found the foretelling.
She found it, guys.
The exact foretelling that was, yes, I found it. It was told by a Damani named Mylan, who actually was an Aes Sedai. They state that she was not useful for fighting because she could not form the weaves unless she was in danger. So she couldn't fight because, as we know, the 3 O's stopped her. So the words that Mylan said to Tuon were, sorry, gotta take a breath. Beware the fox that makes the ravens fly, for he will marry you and carry you away. Beware the man who remembers Hawkwing's face, for he will marry you and set you free. Beware the man of the red hand, for him you will marry and none other.
That's pretty clear. That's pretty clear. That's Matt.
Yeah.
Pretty stinking clear.
So the first part, beware the fox that makes the ravens fly, that is Matt fights in skirmishes with the Seanchan, and the Seanchan are known as the Ravens. Also, it doesn't help that Matt happened to have a ring that he randomly ended up buying that had a fox on it that was chasing ravens.
I just have to say, I have to question some of Matt's decisions. Like, I love Matt to death. He's one of the best characters in the series. But who randomly walks into a store, buys that ring, knowing about all the prophecy stuff that's flying around his head, and just goes, yeah, that works.
Well, what happened with him is that I remember the part where he got the ring is that he was trying to follow a dark friend who he knew was a dark friend. So he was like tailing her, and he ended up slipping into a shop, which happened to be a goldsmith shop. And so he tried on this ring and it fit him, and he didn't look at it or anything, but he needed to leave quickly. So he just threw money on the table that was probably more than the ring was worth, because that's what Matt does whenever he needs to move
Here's
fast.
a bunch of money.
And just yeeted himself out of there.
Gone.
So he ends up with this ring, and later he looks at it and it has a fox chasing 2 ravens into the sky. I think it was 2 ravens.
Words, flaming bloody blood and bloody ashes come forth from his lips in true Matt fashion. Pretty much.
Yes. And then the second part of the foretelling, for he will marry you and carry you away. So he said the words, and then he kidnapped her. And then it says, beware the man who remembers Hawkwing's face. So if you remember, of course, with the Eelfin, they gave Matt the memories, and some of them included Hawkwing.
Specifically, Hawkwing trying to get him to join him, and he just laughing in Hawkwing's face. And I was just like, that's whoever this guy was that gave Matt his memories was one ballsy dude. I mean, Hawkwing, like Hawkwing's name is up there with Luz Theron Telamon's name, and the other, and then like the Heroes of the Horn, because Hawkwing is a hero of the Horn. He comes back whenever the Horn of Valyr is blown.
And actually, it's stated that the only Arthur Hawkwing was supposed to be one of the most powerful Ta'veren, and that actually Rand was way more powerful than he was.
But even still, Hawkwing was a very significant. Like he was a force to be reckoned with, because he united the whole continent. So for someone in their memory to remember laughing in his face when they're like, "Hey, I could use somebody like you," and basically laughing at a man like that. Oh, dude, you got some guts. We'll put it that way. Definitely put it that way.
But yeah, the next part of this quote is, for he will marry you and set you free. So Matt takes her, and they get through all this stuff. And at the end, whenever the Death Watch Guard come, Matt decides that he trusts the Death Watch Guard with her, and he tells her that she can go. Like, no big deal. You have somebody, you have people who can protect you and get you back where you need to be. And he was just like, yeah, you can go. And then the last part is, beware the man of the red hand. I wonder what that could possibly be.
I don't know, because, Matt never got any red paint on his hand, so his hand was never red. No. Yeah, and it's just weird, which I guess if you look at it from the author perspective, it's not very weird, but it is, if you're looking just in the terms of the plot and the way it progressed, the way these prophecies about these different people get fulfilled, and we could go on a whole tangent about that, but there's one thing that we almost overlooked, and I kind of want to come back around to it and then work our way back into a little bit more about the demone. And I think we're running a little short on time, but we were talking about the Death Watch Guard. You just brought them up, and they are actually considered Imperial Daca Vale. Imperial. That subsection, that high section of slaves, if you will. But what a lot of people don't remember or forget about, I don't forget about it, is not only do the Seanchan have a lot of the weird creatures, but they also have Ogier. They have the gardeners.
The Ogier.
They're called the gardeners. And they're scary.
Yeah.
They're so scary.
Any angry Ogier would scare the piss out of me. I would just be like, I'm out, I'm leaving.
So far,
gone.
there are two races, fantasy races I've encountered in the past few months that sing when they kill. And that's the Ogier. And if you've read Stormlight Archive, it's the Parshmen, the Parshendi. They sing. Well, they sing a lot more than when they kill, but like the people when they fight them talk about how like not like singing up, not like battle songs where it's like you sing while you're marching and then you go fight and you only fight. All of a sudden you hear when you fight is death. But no, these guys are like as they're cutting people down, they're singing. And then I just remember them talking about when Loyal started doing that toward the end of the series, and I got goosebumps all over me. I was like, oh my god.
The entire last battle, like, oh my god, I had to take breaks because there's so much intensity in that one chapter that is the size, or I think larger than one of the Harry Potter books. It was confirmed that it
is the word count of the last battle is longer than all of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, so this entire gigantic, basically book-long chapter was so full of intensity and emotion, I would have to stop and like let myself cry for a little while before I could get back into it, because it's just so emotionally like
I'm going to put it to you like this. When I read The Last Battle, when I was reading Memory of Light and I got to the last battle, I planned it out really well. I was off from work on a Monday, and I did the church thing and everything on Sunday, and then Sunday night I read up to the last battle. And I told my wife, I said, tomorrow I'm off work. I am doing nothing tomorrow. And she said, well, what are you actually going to do? I said, I'm going to read the last battle. I'm going to read this 200-page chapter, and I will defeat it. Like I'm doing this tomorrow. This is my day. Thorne, I started at like noon the next day because I actually let myself sleep in a little bit, and I did have to do a few things. I think it was 12:30 that night, because that chapter destroyed me, and on every level, emotionally, physically. Like when I went to bed, I messaged my buddy the next day because I finished the book that night, because when I got off the last battle, there was only like 100-something pages left, so why not? So I got through the last battle and got to the end of the book, which is just as emotional. And I went to bed. My eyes hurt so bad. I have not read that hard and that long. And because it was literally what was slowing me down the last half of the day was I would read 2 paragraphs and my eyes would blur. and I'd have to stop and
Yeah, you were
my eyes would blur from everything, and they were just hurt. They were just things were just fading out, and I'd have to squeeze my eyes shut and then open my eyes again and read a couple more paragraphs and then rinse and repeat. And then it was just like I had to do that for I don't know 250 pages. I know
there is somebody in the group chat, the Black Tower group chat. If you're not part of it, get in there. Marta, I adore Marta. She is on her first read. She has just started A Memory of Light. And me and Moradin have been telling her, you're going to need at least like 3 boxes of tissues and don't read it in public.
No. You will not. Nope. Don't read The Last Battle in public. Never. Even on a reread. Just don't. Just don't. And I'm wholeheartedly convinced.
No, I can't. I've read it twice.
And I am wholeheartedly convinced that if they really wanted to make it an issue, they could make the entirety of the final season of the Wheel of Time the last battle and its aftermath. Like, they could literally work the rest of it into the season before, because there's so much going on. Like, the scope of this battle is ridiculous. Like, I found myself saying the other day, because Game of Thrones is about to come out, and I'm a Game of Thrones fan. I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast are probably Game of Thrones fans. And I found myself reading an article that said the longest cinematic battle in TV history has been filmed for the final season. My first reaction was, holy crap, awesome. Like, it's about to end and it's going to be epic and we're going to get some, just everything's about to happen. And my second thought was, and it's going to hold that title until they film Tarmangaiden. Like, that was literally my next thought. And I told my buddy that and he just laughed. But Thorne,
way.
I think because there's so much more we could say about the Seanchan. I think we're kind of running up against some time here.
We like to run off on tangents.
I was told by my buddy who I record another podcast with that people don't listen for the info, they listen for the tangents. So if that's the case, then this is probably one of the better episodes, because we have went to so many rabbit trails tonight. But
speaking of tangents, Andrew said something about possibly there's an entire tangent that was recorded on the last podcast, an entire tangent by me about pregnancy and preeclampsia.
Well,
don't at me. And
hold on, let me go on Twitter so I can at you real quick.
Andrew
I gotta at you like right now.
Putting it on. Andrew said that he's thinking of putting it as a blooper for the Patreon rewards.
I'm sorry, but the subject matter, I can hear someone now saying, "Ooh, pregnancy rant. I'm gonna buy that." Like, that is amusing to me. It is so funny to me.
Because you can hear in the last episode where I said it was something about heartburn, and I said something about, like, the only time I had heartburn was when I was pregnant. And then I went, there's a cut there because Andrew cut it out.
Andrew was like, no, we're not gonna, no.
Well, it wasn't a bad thing. It's just that I just went on. It was too much of a tangent, and we recorded 3 hours.
Jeez.
Well, it was 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I think 1 hour and 50 something minutes.
Yeah, it was like an hour 40, an hour 50. Because when I sat down and listened to that episode the other day, I looked at the runtime and went, "Holy crap! What did they talk about?" I mean, and then apparently, what did you not talk about? But yeah, so coming back around to the Seanchan, though, I just kind of wrapping things up here. The Seanchan are super unique. We could spend a lot more time tonight and have to give Aaron and Andrew a lot more to have to sift through and cut with all of this. But I think the bottom line, though, is we'll probably have to revisit this a little bit later, which, like I said, there's such a large part of the series that they will come up.
Yeah, I feel like this Omen section and superstitions could be its own podcast.
It seriously could, because that's part of the reason why I'm kind of looking at it and say, we'll touch it again another day. In fact, we may even just do a Seanchan part 2. I feel like we've covered like a lot of the ground basics here, especially when it comes to like where they're from, who they are, and the weird stuff that they do. And I think.
Oh, speaking of which, weird stuff that they do, I just want to mention this. Seanchan drink coffee.
Yes, it's called calf. Again, Robert Jordan, we see you.
I've always imagined it to be like Turkish coffee. Have you ever seen videos of Turkish coffee being made?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it?
I think it's amazing. It looks amazing because they take it, they finely grind coffee beans. And I read about this because I was trying to remember exactly if it was Turkish coffee. So they finely grind coffee beans so fine that it's like a powder. And then it's stuck in like this metal container. And it's stuck in very, very hot sand until it boils. And then it's taken off and then poured into cups.
That's a very Seanchan sounding thing to do. I'm just being real.
And I'm into
just being real. I think one final thing to mention before we go, like I said, we could go through so much more. We could go through the specific types of animals and their uses, talk more about how the one power is used with the Damane, Suldam, that using the Adom with them and all this other stuff. In fact, like I said, we may have to actually do another episode to finish talking about the Seanchan. But one thing I want to mention is there's a list of cities and regions in Seanchan down toward the bottom of our notes here. And there's one I want to mention, and it's Imfaral, which is the location of the Towers of Midnight. I'm going to be 100% honest here. 100% honest. I read Towers of Midnight. I did not see the Towers of Midnight. The whole time I'm sitting here thinking, Matt's going to end up in Seanchan somehow. I don't know how, because by that point I had figured out that the Towers of Midnight were there. But guess what? We never went to the Towers of Midnight, and I still don't know why the book is called Tower of Midnight. Thorne, tell me.
I think it had to do with the foretelling. By I believe Egwene. She had a dream about dark towers being destroyed.
So maybe the dream of the Seanchan Empire kind of falling over on the continent. Maybe
it could be possible. Because it never, I don't think that dream has ever been. Sorry, I'm Googling right now.
And that brings up another good point for me, though, is there's been some times where, like, it seems like I love all the book names. Like, do not get me wrong. Go ahead.
Okay. I have found it directly.
Google.
Sorry. I'm trying to. I realized that I ended up in a forum, not in, like, I was looking for,
Ladies
like,
and gentlemen, she ended up in
Wikipedia.
4chan. Watch as she runs for her life.
Okay. Okay, so in Seanchan,
okay,
this is what this says. The Towers of Midnight form a fortress complex located within the city of Imfaral. I think you're right, because there are 13 towers in the fortress. The dream that Egwene had, I believe, was of 13 towers falling and rising up.
I love it when I'm accidentally right.
Yeah, somebody made a comment on that forum I was looking at before. The reason that I went to it, but I didn't want to scroll. It says one of Egwene's dreams involves 13 dark towers falling over one by one.
And see, so when I was headed toward Towers of Midnight, which by the way, I think Towers of Midnight is probably my favorite out of the whole series, rivaled maybe by The Shadow Rising. And the only reason, I know we talked a lot about the last battle, but at the same time, like A Memory of Light, they're just it hits you so hard. I haven't met a lot of Wheel of Time fans that call it their favorite book because it's an exhausting book to read. It's so good, but it's such an it is a workout. It's like when you pick that book up, you go, here we go. Like that is literally what I said when I opened the book and started reading. And then when I got to the last battle, I had to like I'm not ashamed to admit it. I prayed. I was
When
like, all right, Lord.
when I read a book, I want to feel emotions that I want to feel emotions. But if it wasn't for the 13 books previously, I
Sure.
wouldn't have felt so attached to these characters. And A Memory of Light would not have been as intense. Like if I had my husband just pick up A Memory of Light and just read the last battle, he would be like, it's a battle. But for us who went from, especially like, okay,
huge, you shouldn't be listening to this if you don't want spoilers.
Yes. When Egwene dies.
Oh my God.
Why
did you have to point to that one? When that happened, I was sitting in my back room library. I was sitting in the chair, and I had gotten so riled up and into the book that I was like moving. I was actually sitting up on like the footrest and was moving around, about to start pacing. And then it gets to that part where she just became like a pure shaft of light. And then the next thing I read was the Amarlin has fallen. And I messaged my friend and I said it. I messaged it to him and he said, "Oh, you're there. Oh, you're there."
Yeah. Oh my God. Marta is getting there and that is going to destroy her. And I'm both excited for her. And then I'm also like,
we need to make sure we go on the Discord and tell her not to listen to this episode until she's done, completely done. Then she needs to listen to this episode.
Yeah, she won't. I don't think she's listened to
because she hasn't
many
read
of the episodes.
Yeah, I was the same way. I didn't really listen to a lot of these episodes until I'd finished the series, and then I started listening.
I just love interacting with her. Afterwards, she does need to read it or listen to us because we keep talking
Marta,
about
this
her.
Is the what's the 16th time we've mentioned you? I've lost count.
I think this is like the third.
It's exaggeration, Thorne. Roll with me here.
But we're very considerate of her in the group chat. So if you, for some reason, decided to listen to this podcast and hear all of our wonderful spoilers,
let's talk about it in the spoilers channel. Let's talk about it there.
Spoilers. Yes, we talk about it there, and even like you'll see me and Moradin in the spoiler channel using the spoiler text because we don't want Marta to read it. And she's like, "Why are there so many blank spaces whenever I'm about to start the last book?" And we're like, "Oh."
It's one of those times where she says, "Hey, I wonder what's going to happen here," and you just go, "You sweet summer child."
I just the monkey with the hand over its mouth is the emoji that I use on her a lot because she'll be like, "Oh, I wonder about this thing." She asked the other day, "What happened to?"
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that conversation, and I was just kind of sitting back and going, "I can't say anything." And then you and Morden were like, yeah, what did happen? Wonder, wink, wink, wink." And she's like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, cool." And
something important's going to happen, and that's all she's saying.
All right, yep. But anyway, kind of landing the plane here. Seanchan, super interesting civilization in the Wheel of Time. Very fascinating. Like I said, we could probably spend another good 2 hours, but we don't need it all to get cut out. So we may come back to this again. I don't know when, but this may be brought up again. And like I said, they're such a prominent part of the series that they're going to come back up, and there probably will be a Seanchan tangent maybe in the next few episodes, especially when we talk about more, when we're getting into book reviews and things like that. There will probably definitely be more, talk about the Seanchan there. But yeah, so I think I think that's it for me on the Seanchan. Thor, you got it? Thorne, not Thor, which I can call you Thor, but I think I was trying to say Thorne and I just dropped the last. Hey, Thor was a woman for a while.
Oh, he was?
Well, she was, yeah. It was actually, if you're listening to this and you don't want spoilers for Thor, good Lord, I was just to spoil everything on this podcast. It was Jane Foster in the comics for a little while. Thor was unworthy, and it went to her, the hammer. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's weird. See, I didn't know about that. What I knew about was there's this is mythology, not the thing. There's a thing where Thor, some guy stole Thor's hammer, and he wanted to marry Thor's
Probably
somebody, some woman, and she said no. And the mythology buffs are going to at me. But she said no. And so he and Loki pretended to be women. And Thor married this guy. And then whenever he set the hammer in Thor's lap, Thor was all like, haha, it was really me.
I think I vaguely remember
and then
that.
killed everybody.
But my mind goes to Marvel Comics more than anything when it comes to that. Much to the dismay of some of my friends.
I know stupid things about. I don't watch superhero shows, so I just know mythology.
So you not watch any of the Marvel movies at all, or just none? No, really?
Nope. I'll
you're not
watch them if
so
they're
you're
in
not
front
on
of me,
in-game
but I
hype
don't
train right now.
No, I've heard about things that are kind of gross that people are. I know
Lord.
Memes. I know memes. That's all you need to know.
No, memes are not a good way to get your information, Thorne. You should know this. Not even real-time information. You have to be careful with memes. Memes need to be handled with care. They were banned in Europe for a little while. I don't know if you were around for that, but that was a thing recently where memes were banned. So they need to be handled with care and applied appropriately. And I can hear Morden in the background going, watch this, and then post something in Discord right now. But yeah, just kind of landing the plane here with everything. I don't know if we're going to be on next week or not. We will find out. If the guys want us to kind of keep running things for a little while they get everything together and get everything straightened out, we would be more than happy to return. If you didn't like us, don't let us know because we're sensitive and we don't want to know. If you really liked us, do let us know. Tell Aaron and Andrew, get up on the Discord and let us know. And
the Discord you can go to also at Tower Podcast on Twitter. And I don't remember what the email address is. Actually, I can find that out. I'm silly.
I just had it too. There is an email if you want it. If you need to send an email, just at the Twitter account. But there's that. I also joined the Discord. And did you find it?
You can add the Twitter account. I can find it. I'm being silly because we've got the.
But also, Thorne and I are also on Twitter, and I'm just going to give you my Randall Thor account because I don't use my personal account that much on Twitter. It's not as exciting, but the Randall Thor account is. So that would be like you're typing the dragon at the Dragon Reborn, but the last letter of Reborn is the number 2. So it's basically Dragon Reborn 2 is how you would actually pronounce that. But the full account name is Randall Thor, the Dragon Reborn, and it has an Ariel Burgess picture as the profile pic. And of course, Thorne, if I remember your handle correctly, it's Thorne, isn't it Thorne Fireheart at Thorne Fireheart?
Yes, because Coordinator would not fit into the letter
there's
count.
That. So Thorne Fireheart and Dragon Reborn 2 on Twitter. And, of course, follow the Twitter for the show and as well as join our Discord. It's fun times in the Black Tower Discord.
The email address for Black Tower Podcast is blacktowerpod@gmail.com.
And we have completely and totally butchered ending the show. You can tell we're not used to doing this, but it's okay because we're going to get better. Guys, please give us a chance to get better. And we have enjoyed speaking about this tonight, and we hope you guys enjoy the show. And hopefully we will see you next time.
Bye.
Then again, maybe I don't want to sing. I don't know, because I just feel like I'm just going to be Buddy the Elf going, I'm singing. I'm on a podcast and I'm singing and I'm having fun. I don't remember names and I'm singing.